There is a question that lingers in the quiet aftermath of profound hurt. It is a question asked not with anger, but with a deep, bewildered sadness. It is the question of the one who gave everything, who loved without reservation, who saw the potential and the pain in another and offered their own heart as a healing space. The question is simply, why? Why couldn't they see it? Why couldn't they value what was given? Why, after all the betrayals, the deceptions, the slow erosion of trust, is there no genuine recovery? Why does the person who caused such pain seem incapable of the very transformation they so desperately need? To understand this, we have to look not at the surface behavior, but at the deep, often invisible architecture of the human soul. We have to look at what a person is actually made of, and more importantly, what they are missing. We have to look at the self, and this brings us to the figure at the heart of this dynamic, the one who betrays and the one who is betrayed. We use words like narcissist and empath as if they are simple labels, two sides of a clean coin, but in reality, they are not opposites. They are, in a very tragic way, mirrors of each other. They are both born from the same wound, but they took two completely different paths out of the fire. Let us consider the super empath for a moment. This is not just a person who is kind. This is someone whose very survival, whose sense of safety in the world, has come to depend on their ability to sense and respond to the needs of others. Often this begins very early. Perhaps as a child, they learned that their own feelings were not safe to express. Perhaps the environment they grew up in was unpredictable, or their caregiver's love was conditional on the child being a certain way, quiet, helpful, attentive to the adult's moods. So the child develops a hypervigilant radar. They learn to scan the emotional horizon for any sign of trouble. They learn that by soothing the other, they can soothe their own deep internal anxiety. Their own sense of self becomes intertwined with their ability to fix, to heal, to accommodate. This is not a weakness, in the way the world often sees it. It is a profound and hard-won skill. It is a survival strategy that once protected them. But in adult life, it becomes a vulnerability. It means they enter relationships with their emotional channels wide open. They feel what the other feels. They anticipate needs before they are spoken. They give, not from a place of surplus, but often from a place of deep, unconscious hope. The hope that if they give enough, they will finally receive the unconditional acceptance they were denied long ago. Now look at the other side, the narcissist. We must approach this with compassion, not to excuse behavior, but to understand its origin. No one is born a narcissist. A baby comes into the world in a state of absolute need and utter fusion with the mother. The baby does not distinguish between itself and the caregiver. Its survival depends on being seen, soothed, and responded to. Healthy development allows the child to gradually separate, to develop a solid sense of self, knowing that they are loved even when they are not the center of attention. They learn that their feelings matter. But what happens when that early environment fails? What happens when the caregiver is not attuned? When the child's emotional expressions are met with indifference, hostility, or are used to serve the parent's own needs? The child faces an impossible dilemma. The need for connection is absolute. To survive psychologically, the child must find a way to maintain the bond. And if being one's authentic self breaks that bond, then the authentic self must be hidden. It must be buried so deep that even the child forgets it was there. What develops in its place is a false self, a self that is designed to elicit the response that the true self was denied, a self that is perfect, powerful, brilliant, and above all, worthy of admiration. This false self is not a choice. It is a psychological fortress built to protect a terrifying secret, the belief that the real self is fundamentally flawed, unlovable, and worthless. This is the core wound of the narcissist. It is a gaping void where the sense of self should be. So, when a super empath meets a narcissist, It is not an accident. It is a tragic magnetic pull of two complementary wounds. The empath, with their open channels and their deep-seated need to be needed, senses the void. They don't see it as a void, of course. They see it as a potential. They see a deep, fascinating person who needs to be understood. They feel a familiar pull to heal, to fill, to make whole. The narcissist, in turn, senses the empath's giving nature. Here is a source of the admiration, the attention, the validation that their false self craves to keep the void at bay. The empath offers a perfect mirror, reflecting back the grandiose image the narcissist needs to see, and for a time, it can feel like magic. The empath feels deeply seen and appreciated because the narcissist, in the idealization phase, is mirroring back everything the empath wants to see. They are performing the role of the perfect partner, drawing on their keen, albeit unconscious, observation of what is needed. The empath, feeling this intense connection, gives even more. They are finally receiving the attention they always craved by giving the attention the other craves. It is a perfect, tragic symmetry, but a false self cannot sustain a real relationship. A relationship requires two whole people, two separate selves, meeting and choosing each other. In this dynamic, there is only one whole person, and one person who is a collection of mirrors and masks. The narcissist cannot truly see the empath. They can only see the reflection the empath provides. They cannot love the empath because they do not know who the empath really is. They love the function the empath serves. And so the betrayal is not an event. It is an inevitability. It is the moment when the false self's needs collide with the reality of the other person's humanity. It might be a lie, an infidelity, a devaluation, a sudden coldness. The form it takes varies, but the mechanism is the same. The empath in their wholeness makes a demand. Perhaps they express a need of their own. Perhaps they are hurt and show it. Perhaps they stop reflecting perfection and start reflecting reality. And for the narcissist, this is a catastrophe. Why? Because the empath's pain is not just an emotion to be soothed. It is an indictment. It is a living, breathing proof that the narcissist has failed in their fundamental task, to maintain the perfect illusion. The empath's hurt says, "You are not the person I thought you were. You are not meeting my needs." And this message cannot be received by the false self. It is not processed as information to be considered. It is experienced as a mortal threat. It triggers the original wound, the belief of being fundamentally flawed and unworthy. To avoid that overwhelming pain, the psyche must defend itself. It does so by any means necessary: rage, blame, denial, withdrawal, or finding a new mirror that will reflect perfection once again. This is the betrayal, and it is here, in the aftermath, that we find the answer to the question of recovery. The empath, in their devastation, often holds on to a hope, the hope that the narcissist will see what they have done, that they will have an awakening, that the pain of the loss will force them to look inward and begin the long, hard work of healing. It is a testament to the empath's beautiful, giving heart that they can even imagine this. They project their own capacity for introspection, for remorse, for transformation onto the other person. But the narcissist cannot recover from the betrayal for the same reason they committed it in the first place. They cannot access the very thing that would be required for such a recovery, a genuine self. To recover from betraying someone, you must first be able to truly see that someone. You must be able to recognize them as a separate, feeling being with a valid experience of their own. You must be able to say, "I caused you pain. Your pain is real. It is not about me." For the narcissist, this is an impossible ask. The other person only exists in relation to them. The other's pain is only interpreted as a reflection on them. If you are in pain because of me, it is not because I hurt you. It is because you are too sensitive, or you are trying to make me feel guilty, or you are attacking me. The focus cannot shift from the self. The fortress walls are too high. To recover, you must be able to feel remorse. And remorse is not the same as guilt. Guilt is, I did a bad thing. Remorse is, I hurt you, and I feel your hurt inside of me. Remorse requires empathy. It requires the capacity to let another person's emotional state enter your own heart and move you. But the narcissist's heart is not a place that can be entered. It is guarded by the false self. To feel the empath's pain as their own would be to open the door to the very void they have spent a lifetime trying to seal. It would mean acknowledging the wreckage their false self has caused, and that wreckage would include the exposure of their own worthlessness. That is a pain so profound, so elemental, that the psyche will do anything to avoid it, even if that means destroying the very thing it claims to love. To recover, you must have a self that can do the work of recovery, the work of therapy, of deep introspection, of sitting with discomfort, of acknowledging flaws, of feeling shame and moving through it. This requires a me that is strong enough to look at itself. It requires a core identity that can say, I have these problems, and I am willing to examine them. But if that core identity is a void, what is there to do the examining? Who is the I that is supposed to change? The false self cannot heal the true self because it does not believe the true self exists. Its entire purpose is to keep that truth buried. So, in the wake of betraying a super empath, what happens? The narcissist feels something, yes. They feel the loss of a resource. They feel the narcissistic injury of being rejected or seen in a negative light. They may feel a profound emptiness, a panic, a rage, but they do not feel the loss of you. They feel the loss of what you provided, and because they cannot feel the loss of you, they cannot learn from the loss of you. There is no lesson. There is only a wound to their false self that must be soothed, and the way to soothe it is not to look inward, but to look outward, to find a new source, a new mirror, a new empath who will once again reflect the image they need to see. This is the tragedy at the heart of this dynamic. The empath gives the gift of their deepest self, hoping it will awaken something in the other, and in a way, it does. It awakens a painful truth, but that truth is not processed as a call to growth. It is processed as a call to defense. The empath's love becomes the very thing that triggers the narcissist's deepest fear, the exposure of their own emptiness, and so they must flee from it or destroy it to survive. The empath, on the other hand, is left with a different kind of pain. They are left with the shattering realization that their love was not enough, and worse, they are left with the insidious, quiet question, was it my fault? Was I not good enough? Did I give too much, or not in the right way? This is the empath's own wound speaking, the childhood belief that they are responsible for the feelings of others. The narcissist's failure to recover becomes, in the empath's mind, their own failure to heal. And this is where the deepest truth of this experience lies. The narcissist cannot recover from betraying you because they never truly had a self to recover with. But you can recover. Your pain, your questioning, your grief, these are not signs of your failure. They are signs of your wholeness. The fact that you feel this loss so deeply is proof that you are real. The fact that you can ask why with such genuine bewilderment is proof that you possess a capacity for love and connection that the other person can only mimic. The journey for you is not about waiting for them to see the light. It is about turning that light inward. It is about understanding that your giving nature, your empathy, your need to connect, these are not pathologies to be cured. They are strengths that need to be protected and directed with wisdom. The lesson is not to stop giving. The lesson is to learn who is worthy of your gift. You poured your heart into a void. and a void by its very nature cannot give back. It can only consume. The narcissist's inability to recover is not a mystery. It is the natural, inevitable consequence of a life lived without a self. Their story after you is more of the same, a search for mirrors, not for meaning. Your story, if you choose it, can be different. Your recovery begins when you stop looking back at the fortress and start tending to the ground beneath your own feet. It begins when you understand that their lack of recovery is not your failure, but their tragedy. A tragedy you are not responsible for solving. The most transformative insight is not that they were incapable of change. It is that you are capable of it. You are capable of healing the wound that made you so vulnerable to their false self in the first place. You can learn that your worth does not depend on being needed. You can learn that your love is not a tool to fix others, but a gift to be shared with those who can receive it, hold it, and offer their own in return. That is the recovery that matters. That is the healing that is real, and it is a healing that begins not when they finally see you, but when you finally see yourself.